Welcome to the very first episode of Fanatics Frenzy. I am Dennis and your host. And today we have my co-host over here.
Scott, a.k.a. Silent Killer.
Yes, SK for just family and friends only. So we wanted to get into this podcast, Fanatics Frenzy, and for fans going crazy about their sports teams and all that kind of stuff. And for me, I have gotten into American football since I came to the U.S. and I believe it's one of the greatest things ever in terms of, entertainment and all that kind of stuff. And Scott, how long have you, you know a lot about American football, so...
Well, I'm now 41 years old, and so we'll talk about some of our teams coming up. But growing up, I played all sports. Focused more on soccer when I got to the end of high school and college, and played football, played baseball, played basketball. So, I think the biggest thing, coaching also for the last 12 years, just have a lot of different ideas, and we've talked outside of the podcast, on a weekly basis, and so it's for the average Joe who wants to talk about sports.
That's right. This is not we are not professionals, okay? We just appreciate the sport and we watch the sport, so we want to talk about it just how you would sit on your couch at home and talk about sports with your friends and family. And we also got into fantasy football, and I'm whooping them, but not really, but that is one of the things that this game helps bond family and friends over. So nobody's an expert here. We just want to get into it and enjoy the game and appreciate the game from the fan perspective, okay, like you would at home.
And I think it's important to, outside of, we'll cover football today, but we're going to bring a lot of different topics in, like I talked about before, whether it's the coaching side of different sports, and we're going to bring some other entertainment, topics in. So it won't just be all sports all the time, but obviously for the first episode, it will be.
That's right. And today, we will get into the current state of the Cowboys, some upcoming games, that is happening in NFL and in college football. And like you can see my hat over here, I'm a big Texas Tech fan because that's where I went to school. And also, unfortunately, I'm a big Cowboy fan. It's not going great for us. But what about you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about, your teams?
Unfortunately, at this point, I am a Cowboy fan. But, I was young. I was 10. When I saw the Cowboys win the first Super Bowl. So I got to live through the glory years. And unfortunately, I was hooked at that point. So we're still waiting. We've been waiting. This is 29 years. And so we're just waiting to get back. On the college side, I've followed the Longhorns since I was in 7th grade. And obviously having a good year. So, one's good, one's bad.
Hey, we Texas Tech fans know how we feel about them Longhorns. We just know how we feel about them. That's what we want to say. That's all I'm going to say right now. But we'll get into it more. And just like you said, but before we start getting into anything, I want you guys to follow us on Instagram at Fanatics Frenzy. Look, go on YouTube and make sure you watch this episode. Share, like, comment. Tell us your positive criticisms that you want to tell us, even the negative ones, we're going to take it, so we can be better. Okay. But first off, let's get some applause going right now. I think we killed that. We killed that first. Yeah. Get that one going for us. Wrong one, but hey, it's whatever,
Is it this one?
Yeah.
Nope.
There we go. Finally got it right.
We'll figure that out eventually.
Hey, that's right. Like you said, Joe's over here, no pros. Okay, so, you're going to take it. But for the first thing, let's talk about the current state of the Cowboys. Hey, we are the laughing stock of the league right now, for sure. I believe the Cowboys are 3-6 right now. And we have Dak. Dak is hurt for the season. He's getting a hamstring surgery, I believe, yesterday or today. That was what the timeline was, and he's out for the season. And we saw Cooper Rush on Sunday fumbled his first snap. Okay, not on the first series. First snap, he fumbled the ball after the defense have made a stand. What do you talk to me about the Cowboys right now?
Well, I tell you, that first play is just a summary of the whole season.
Okay.
I mean, you talk about guys, injuries plague every team. Mm-hmm. It's hit the Cowboys harder this year than it has in the past. Yes, they've had injuries before, but it's hit key players. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's the next man up. And when you see a quarterback who's been waiting to kind of, go in, mm-hmm. come in and fumble away the very first touch he has in a football game, it just kind of sends a message on what the kind of the mindset is in the locker room.
Okay.
And in my opinion, looks like guys aren't ready. The guys that are backups are not ready. And you have a problem at this point, from a locker room standpoint. And the players are not playing hard. And that comes back to, I think, there's been a lot of talk about whether Mike McCarthy's lost the locker room. You can see it on the field, I think it looks like he has.
Yes.
And the last thing I'll say to that is, it's kind of surprising that he's lost the locker room that early, coming off of 3 consecutive 12-win seasons. Normally, it takes a couple of seasons of bad play for players to, you look at some other, organizations like the Jets and like the Giants, mm-hmm. and some of those guys who've struggled. Mm-hmm. And the Cowboys have been a really solid football team the last 3 years. And for one season, they're struggling and everybody bails out. That, we have a podcast. There's some members of that team that decide to go on a podcast and spend more time on that than they do in the gym. But I'll leave that alone.
Here's the thing. When to your point about Mike McCarthy losing the locker room after having 3 consecutive 12-5 seasons, I believe, look at those 12-5 seasons. When they lost, and they did lose at the playoffs, it was a sieve. Like, that team was like a 3 in, or a 5-12 team instead of a 12-5 team. I don't know if that makes sense. But when they lost at the playoffs, like, look at that game against San Francisco on that last play when they had Zeke snapping the ball, and, we saw all that. Zeke got pushed around, whatever. And then the following year we play Green Bay, and it looks as if that the Cowboys came out not prepared, not ready to go, and we just got flat out ass kicked. Mm-hmm. If I can say that, And Micah, had an interview after the game, and he was talking about, he wants to win things for the guys that have worked hard on the team, Zach Martin, all those guys that come in every day, blah, blah, blah. But that was not good. That was such a bad look. Because you could clearly see that there was a disconnect and some sort of not a respect for the head coach who has been there for 5 years this season, 5 years now. Yeah,
the respect is probably the key word there because, in the NFL, there's a professionalism that comes with how you talk to the media, mm-hmm. and how you talk about your teammates and coaches in the media. Social media and podcasts have changed that because these guys can go on their own private talk show and say really whatever they want. But I'll go back to, a lot of the former Cowboys players that have won Super Bowls, mm-hmm. talk about their current roster and the, how these guys prepare and play and some of the lazy plays that they put in. They're not going hard every down. And then you think about if those guys were to come out and make comments against Jimmy Johnson, mm-hmm. back when they were winning Super Bowls, mm-hmm. their ass would be gone. Right. Not just on the bench.
Off the team.
Right. And so there's a lot of, from a, fan perspective, there's a lot of frustration with that because, then the idea of entitlement comes into play because the coaches are the ones that go. It's not the players. And you're kind of seeing a locker room disrespect a coach, not only publicly, but when it gets to the point of being public, there's a lot of disrespect that's going on behind closed doors.
But then, okay, we have talked about the coaches. We talked about the players not working hard enough. And Troy Aikman had talked about, even separation on the receivers, not having enough separation and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, like you said, the coaches are the one that's being, ousted out of town, okay? The players stay. But the Cowboys players know that Coach Mike McCarthy is not in charge.
Right.
What about the owner? Everybody has, a problem with that big glare in that stadium. Apparently, he covers up that glare for other events, but when the Cowboys play, it's there. And I believe 2 seasons ago or last season, there was a similar, or when a few players have talked about how when they try to catch the ball, it's in their eyes, blah blah blah. It was a big issue this weekend. With CD not being able to, catch a touchdown because of that. And I was watching, the Kelsey brothers and this morning, and Travis was talking about how he has played in that stadium, and that was an issue. When Jerry Jones was asked about this issue, I believe he said, "Oh well, let's tear up that whole stadium and rebuild it." I mean, excuse me.
I would equate that to a 4-year-old throwing a fit when their parent says something that they don't like because, the media is trying to do their job. It's a valid question. It's a valid concern. You have people within your organization saying it's a problem and it's affecting the play on the field. So to act like that and say, and the comment was, well, let's just tear the damn stadium down.
Right.
It's a 4-year-old throwing a fit. And one of the other things that he said, Sports Illustrated came out with some comments that he made, and I'll just read a little bit of it. Every venue has certain things that in certain ways and times can create an advantage. That really goes under the category of home field advantage. Well, here's the thing. They haven't won a game there all season at home.
And they were 16-0 last year, or dating back to 2 years before that playoff loss against Green Bay.
Yeah. And if you look at the realistic times of the wins, some of his comments after were saying that they built that to feel more like an outdoor stadium. There's a big problem with that.
Talk to me.
Outdoor stadiums do not have giant glass windows to let the sun in. Once it's after a certain time of day, guess what happens to the sun? It goes behind, the stadium, and you can't see it. It doesn't affect you. So Jerry has always been, obviously he wants to be in control. He wants to be in control of every decision. And once his decisions are challenged, he becomes like a 4-year-old child. And this is it's not going to go away. In my opinion, he would not put up curtains just to spite everybody, just as another, hey, this is my decision. It's my team. I run this show, and I'm not going to do it. So, unfortunately, for the Cowboys, it had affected them in this game. But let's be honest, CD makes that catch. The game's still not close. Does it change kind of maybe momentum
100%,
and where that?
100%.
Absolutely. But it wouldn't have changed the overall outcome of it. But it does give them a little bit of confidence. Driving down, taking the lead, having some options, and being in the game. But at the end of the day, they don't play a whole lot of 3:25 in the afternoon games. That's when the sun's really at the worst. Are those games? So, again, it's an issue, and the way he handles it is just, it's Jerry. That's the only way you can say it.
It's Jerry. You heard that? It's Jerry. And the last time the Cowboys scored a touchdown at AT&T Stadium was Turpin. And I believe that was against the Ravens. And if I'm not mistaken, that was week 2. That was week 2 or 3, one of those. 2 or 3, one of those. But we will move into the next segment of this podcast, and I want to talk about some upcoming games. Okay. First off, let's drift a little bit to college football. Okay, we just got done with the Cowboys and all of that. Let's drift a little bit to the college football. So, number 3 ranked Texas, and you're a big Texas fan. Okay, big Texas fan, is going to Arkansas Razorback in Arkansas this weekend.
Yeah.
And it's an SEC matchup. Okay. It's a whole lot about, 2 lost teams getting to the playoffs and all of that. I'm not saying Texas are going to lose this game, but are you nervous?
Well, do you know what they call Fayetteville?
Tell me. I don't. I want to know. I want to hear this.
Fayetteville has a nickname, and it's Vietnam.
What does that even mean?
So, like Vietnam, it's a play on obviously what happened there, and it's the environment that Texas is going to face when they go to Arkansas, because Arkansas hates Texas more than they like their own team.
Okay.
And it's one of those. It's a road game in the SEC, and it's a rivalry renewed. Like the A&M game later in the season.
Right.
And it's going to be a physical game. If we're looking at it from 30,000 feet, Texas should be able to take advantage of their secondary.
Okay.
If you look at Arkansas, what they do well is they're 7th in the country when it comes to big plays.
Okay.
Especially after turnovers. That's what got Texas into problems when they played Vanderbilt, and that's what got them into trouble against Georgia was the turnovers.
I was going to bring that up. I believe the last time Texas was away to an SEC team was Vanderbilt, and that game came to the wire. Okay, and I believe I don't think Vanderbilt has the stadium crazy as Arkansas would. Okay, because I believe Nick Saban mentioned before they got Alabama got their butt handed over to them that Vanderbilt was one of the easiest stadiums for them to play. So if Texas struggled that much against Vandy, what about when they go into Arkansas this weekend?
Yeah, I mean the spread's 13.5. It's I think what you're gonna have to do, if you're Texas, the fan base is gonna be nuts. I mean, Arkansas is a special place, and I don't mean that in the beautiful special. I think their fans are a little bit different.
Okay.
And again, they're going to pack the stadium. They're going to be loud. They're going to be nuts. Texas is going to have to ride that wave early, and they're going to have to, even the way they're going to have to manage their first 3 possessions is they're going to have to end in kicks. If they end in kicks, then I think this game will be fine. And what that means is obvious, either a punt, a field goal, or an extra point. As long as the possessions end in a kick, Texas should be okay. If they have an early turnover in their own territory and give Arkansas a short field, it's exactly what Arkansas does well, and that's what got Texas into trouble, against the other teams. Now, what I will say is Texas has run the ball better the last couple of weeks. I think with Wisner in the backfield and obviously Blue, has that kind of change of speed, pace. I think between both of those and then coming out of the backfield, it makes Texas a much better football team where, Quinn's not having to, rely on the long ball and rely on, the big plays down the field. Because if you look back at that Florida game last week, they had a couple of just dump-offs that ended up in chunk plays. And so that's a version of the run game.
Right.
Texas isn't always going to just line up, in power formation and ram it down your throat.
Right.
They're going to use, some of the little swing passes. They're going to do some check downs. They're going to do, all the motion to get the eyes in the backfield and really chasing ghosts for Arkansas. So again, I think Texas lines up very well with Arkansas, even though it's a hostile environment. And again, if they can, with their first 3 possessions, they don't necessarily have to go score touchdowns on all 3. But if they make Arkansas drive the length of the field or, 80 yards, 70 yards, Texas's defense is underrated. They're good.
They're very good. Yeah, I believe it's a top 5 defense in college football right now. Texas defense 100% is. Yeah,
and their secondary is much improved, so Arkansas is going to have to run the ball. What I will say is, the game last week against Florida for Texas, even though it was out of hand at halftime, their run defense was not great in the second half, and they ended up allowing Florida 222 rushing yards, I believe. So, that's not for a team that's going to want to try to be balanced and run the football and throw and get some chunk plays. If you force them to be one-dimensional, they'll be okay, but they've got to be able to shut down that run game better.
Football 101, man. We just got some check downs, swing plays, all of that. Hey, I'm learning today. It's good. I'm learning today. But another game that is going to be very, very, very interesting is Georgia at Tennessee. Tennessee is ranked number 6 in the country. Georgia is number 11. Tennessee is 81. Georgia 7-2. Okay, this is a must-win game for Georgia. But they have a problem with turnovers with their quarterback Carson Beck. He has 14 turnovers in his last 6 games. I mean, that is a little crazy. But if Georgia loses, hypothetically, if Georgia loses this game, they're gonna fall to 7-3, and even if they win out, how are you gonna justify letting a 3-loss team into their playoffs, even though they're number 11 right now?
What I would say is be kind of careful saying or kind of accepting that not you. I'm saying just the general public.
Right.
That a 3-loss SEC team won't make it. Because right now, if you look at the teams that are in, Georgia's at 12. If you look at the teams that are currently in, their strength of schedule, their strength of record, the ranked opponents that they've beaten, all of that is better than all of those teams. They have the number 1 ranked.
Right. Georgia beat Texas out of number 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
So even if, I'm just saying, and if Georgia does end up losing that game, just be careful on that. Now, here's a situation for Georgia. They're in a position they haven't been in the last couple of years, really. Their quarterback basically took himself from projections of top 10
Heisman in preseason
to now he's going to be, he's out of first round for sure. He's projected to possibly be out of second. Yep. So you talk about a fall from graces. That guy, and then there were clips of him smiling on the bench during the last game. When they were
do
down.
That, man. Can't.
But it all started, during that Texas game when Georgia went to Texas, and we already talked about the Texas game a little bit, but if you really look at it, Texas had 3 or 4 turnovers that were in their own, half of the field, gave Georgia a short field. That's a different game if they force Georgia to go the length of the field, because Carson Beck is not playing good football right now.
No.
He has, and he definitely can. And, I listened to Coach Kirby Smart talk about, he's fielding questions about, hey, or have you looked at another quarterback or bringing, another quarterback in? And the answer is absolutely not. I agree with that, because he's got you there. He's won. He's, played really good football. Is he on a streak right now? Absolutely. And a lot of quarterbacks go through that.
14 turnovers in 6 games is a little suspect to me. I understand, wanting to bring in a different guy, but it should be some sort of conversation going in the coach's room at least, or at least he should have the offensive coordinator come over and, hey man, I mean, have you looked into maybe something else here? Or, of course, this is not Georgia.
Yeah.
This is not Georgia at all.
My opinion on that is they probably know what they have in the second and third quarterback, and there's a reason that Carson is still there. If they were in the position, straight up, if it was the Texas situation, it's Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. If Ewers is throwing 3 picks a game,
he's sitting.
He's sitting.
Hey,
Georgia doesn't have that, that backup in the cupboard like Texas does.
Texas have the best problem in football right now. Your number 1 and number 2 quarterback can start for any team on the face of earth right now. So
I think Carson Beck is gonna, obviously he's gonna have to play well this weekend. It's gonna be a wild environment. The thing that Georgia does well is their defense travels. And so it's gonna. I think that's gonna keep this game. In my opinion, I think Georgia does win this game, and what that's gonna do is create, a wild situation in the SEC, because then you're going to have Texas and Texas A&M up there, who will play each other, and then everybody else has got at least 2 losses. So you're going to have, could be 6 or 7 teams by the end of the year, and then who are you going to be choosing from? So this is a way for Georgia to play their way back into, the playoff. It's a week-to-week thing, and fans go absolutely nuts, when their team is not in there for 1 week. They go win this game, they're probably going to move up back in the top 10, and they're going to be, where they need to. Now, at the end of the day, if they keep winning and win out, and they find their way in the SEC championship game, you could get a rematch against Texas, or you could get, somebody else. So this is probably the most fun
100%
that I've seen in a while.
Yeah. All this conference realignment was great. It was great. Hey, my dark horse, okay? And we're not going to get into it, but a team that is on the up and up, it's Coach Prime and them boys. I'm just saying, Coach Prime, hey, they control their destiny to the Big 12 National Championship game, the Big 12 Championship game. And if they win that Big 12 Championship game, they're in 100%. I don't think they can go neck to neck with any of the SEC teams or even the Big Ten teams. But it will be phenomenal for the job that, Coach Prime has done, just to throw it in there.
Yeah, I mean, I watch and I like a lot of what he's done. Obviously, he has taken a program that was in the absolute gutter,
1-11,
yeah, and brought them back to some sort of respectability and relevance, and have a chance to win. All obviously a depleted Big 12 conference.
Whoa.
I know you got your Red Raiders in there, but they're they were trying to throw tortillas last week and it didn't work. So we kind of talked about the Cowboys a little bit in the quarterback situation. I mean, Jerry, don't put this, don't put this out of reach, but there's talk of if they could get Coach Prime, and bring him, and find a way to. They're obviously gonna finish somewhere where they'll have probably top 10 pick.
And what do you do with your $60 million quarterback?
Well, here's the deal with that. He's not gonna play right away. He's sitting. He's not going to play right away. You've got your $60 million quarterback. Okay. If you look at a lot of the teams that have brought in new coaches and had success, where have those coaches been from? They've been from the team that they played for, and they brought in D'Amico Ryans.
Okay, yeah.
There's a couple of others out there that have done the same thing where they bring in those coaches. Dan Campbell, perfect example. And they have that passion. They have that culture about them of when they were playing, and the players buy into it. So if I'm Jerry, Jerry doesn't necessarily look at winning Super Bowls anymore. That's he's made too many dumb decisions. If he cared about Super Bowls, he would put a damn curtain, in the stadium for the sun. True. He's interested in, are people watching and are we relevant? You kidding me? If he brought in Coach Prime and they were able to trade up a few spots to get him, people would watch and it'd be entertaining as hell. So I think he's not going to play right away, but again, the Dak contract and should he have gotten it, all that, it doesn't matter anymore, right? Because that's what they got now. And he's out for the rest of this year, and they're going to have a pick at the end of the year that
this is interesting because I know this is way out of the scope of what we were going to talk about, but since we're here, we will knock this out and then we'll try to close off here. But I think the Raiders were looking at getting Shador, okay, and I think they might have the pick for it. But were you saying this whole thing with Coach Prime and Cowboys and all that kind of stuff? Because I can see that, because the Raiders definitely needs a quarterback, and I think they have the cap space for it. If they get Shador and Coach Prime, there will be a lot of teams that will be interested in Dak, because I don't know how Dak will feel about playing when he knows that his time is basically almost up. Basically all he's doing right now is playing and getting kicked out of town in a season or two. So he might, I know he has a no trade and a no tag, blah 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 in his contract, but if he likes a place, he can waive that no trade. So the Steelers, because I know Mike Tomlin will like Dak, and that defense behind Dak will be great.
Yeah, they'll have options. They'll have somebody that would want him. So we'll see where that lands, but it would be a good option.
Fast forward, we got 2 more games today. We can get out of here, but we got Commanders going over to Eagles, NFC East matchup. First time, Jaden Daniels is going to get to see Jalen Hurts and the Philly boys. We all know how I feel about them and all those guys, but who you got in Commanders Eagles?
This one's a little tough. We'll get into fantasy on some of these other shows, but Jaden Daniels is my guy. He's my fantasy quarterback, and I like what he does. He struggled a little bit last week against a solid defense. He was he made some plays, but you could kind of see a little bit of struggle with them mixing up some blitzes and some things like that. And
Philly is a 3.5 point favorite.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I would lean towards Philadelphia.
No, that's not big because
it shouldn't be.
It's assumed you get 3 points for being the home team.
It depends on which site, depends on which where you're looking at the information, but it's assumed and it's kind of built in to the numbers, but. I think it's going to be a good game. It would shock me if Philadelphia ran away with it. I do think they win the game.
Right.
Now, the question is it going to be tight enough, where it's a field goal's got to win kind of thing? And I think it might be. Yeah.
Because Nick Sirianni does not exactly make the best choices when he's up. And his play calling is a little bit suspect. And, he doesn't believe in field goals and all that kind of stuff. So I believe it will come down to kicking some field goals here and there, but another game that we're gonna get into will be. So who do you got in that game though?
I do have Philadelphia. I have Philadelphia winning, and I think it'll put a lot of pressure on them, seeing a quarterback that can move, not just in the pocket but outside, and them have to kind of game plan for that. And Washington's one of those teams that's on the rise. I do still have some questions about their defense against some good offenses, so I think that's probably where Philadelphia ends up winning the game is just being able to make one more drive than Washington.
So Chiefs and Bills. Chiefs are undefeated, 9-0. Bills are 8-2. I believe the Chiefs are favored in this game. I'm not so sure, but I think the Chiefs should be favored in this game by 2.5.
Yeah, this one. If you watch the Chiefs the last several weeks, they're they're close, right? It reminds me of a couple years ago when the Vikings were going on that run when they lost 2 games and ended up not, getting knocked out in the playoffs. It reminds me of that. I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, but what I mean by that is their regular season, some of these games are literally a coin flip away from them losing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And a penalty here, toe on the line from the first game of the season, that they could
overtime win against the Bucks, and then a block field goal to win the game last week against Broncos. So yeah, they're close.
Yeah, I think they're a coin flip away from really. They could have 3 losses. I mean, they've been that close. Now,
the Bills are hurt. The Bills are hurt. Okay, I don't know if Amari Cooper plays, and I got Kincaid on my team, and so far it says he's questionable.
Yeah.
And I believe Coleman is not also available. So.
Yeah, Josh Allen's playing good football this year. He's limited his turnovers.
He'll pick it back up.
He will, because he's a gunslinger. It's just his nature. I think I'm gonna go with the Chiefs on this.
Okay.
On this game, but it's coming to a point where obviously, it's been since '77 when the Dolphins went undefeated. They're not going to go undefeated, but I don't think this is the game that they get tripped up.
Well. So SK got Chiefs against Bills. He got Eagles against Commanders. He got his good team, his favorite Texas, going against Arkansas, and he got Georgia beating Tennessee. So if you are any of our betting guys out there, you have 4 picks today.
Well, let's clarify. That's not. I didn't pick against the spread. I don't want anybody calling in. Or screaming at me or finding me on social media and say they went 0-4 and lost, $1,000 this weekend. So
hey, well, this was great. I'm thankful that our first episode is out of the way. It was long overdue. We needed to do this. There you go. We had a great team of support behind us. That pushes. Can be a little too much, but hey, it's all out of love. So. We want to say shout outs to Mom for also, pushing us, to get this out of the way. But any last minute thoughts that you got,
I was gonna say if anybody wants a topic for us, again, it doesn't have to be sports, but if there's just something that you want to hear our unique perspective on between the two of us,
100%,
reach out, let us know. And again, this is going to be fluid, so we're going to do the best we can to mix in some topics, and look forward to talking with y'all again next week.
All right. Well, thank you for sticking with us. And as always, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, send it to your friends and all that kind of stuff. But this was the very first episode of Fanatics Frenzy. Just a few sports fanatics just being frenzy or crazy about their teams, But thank you for sticking around, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, man. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yes, sir.